When I re entered corporate America after my burnout and after my sabbatical, I told myself a story that taking a lower level, lower paying job would mean lower stress. I thought that stepping down and stepping back would bring me peace, but it didn't. So that's what I'm going to talk about in today's video about just how, again, this middle part after burnout and after taking time to heal and while you're rebuilding may not be everything that you want, but it still does have benefits to it. So when I left my six-figure job due to burnout and I took a nearly 1 year sabbatical, and again, I think every single woman, especially Black women, should take a sabbatical at some point in time in their professional lives. Of course, I was kind of pushed into taking my sabbatical. I'll tell like that full story, I'm sure, over this 100-day timeline. But that sabbatical was like the best thing I could have done for myself. And not only did it allow me to heal and just be still, when you don't have like constant expectations, responsibility, all of that just hammering down on you nonstop, how it was for years, your mind, your body can finally like just ease and settle down. And that's another funny story too. Like the first couple of weeks of my sabbatical were not like the best when you think, because my body was in just such chronic stress and tension for so many years that the first couple of weeks of my sabbatical were actually like painful, like literally. But I'll tell that full story another time. But what it did allow me to do was get very clear, clear enough for how I wanted to enter back into corporate America, what environments I wanted to be in, what type of work I wanted to do, how I wanted to use specific skills that I had. What else? I said the environment, the skills, the work, how I wanted to feel in my body. All of those things I was really, really clear on. And for some, well, I know what the reason is. I was going to say for some reason, but when I was in my corporate leadership role, I had a very, very large team. Um, so I knew that coming back, I wanted to not be in leadership in any capacity. I just didn't want to have direct reports anymore for that season. And then taking into consideration all of the other things I named. So when I started applying for jobs, after my sabbatical, I was applying to very specific jobs that would meet those needs, all the things I just said. And I got a lot of interviews. I got, to several rounds of interviews. Um, Long story short, I got a role that was really aligned with how I wanted to work, the ways I wanted to use my skills, and the environment in which I wanted to work in. So what that looked like was me being a individual contributor that checked the box, working from home with just there would be occasional times that we would need to go into the office, which I had no problem with that at all. And I've curated my home in a very intentional way after chronic exhaustion. So that was another reason I wanted to work from home, just because the environment that I've curated in my home is very intentional and promotes a level of calm and peace and ease. So again, I wanted my workspace to be that way. So check the box there, using the skills that I wanted to use. And cherry on top, I had a great leader in this particular role. So the role was what I wanted. I was very excited, went into it. However, things change. Things change. Although I did not have direct reports, the expectations were still very high. The output was still very high. The pressure to get things done in this particular role, there's like really, really busy seasons. And in that season, it is super, super intense. So it's almost like everything that I was experiencing in the corporate leadership role, besides the not having a team report to me, was still present in this job. So it was like the same job, it just changed shape and I got, less pay, which was my choice because in my mind, I was like, okay, lower level role, lower level pay will equal lower level stress. And that was that was just not the case. And I get it too. Like there's never going to be any job where you don't have a level of stress, but what I mean is chronic stress, like the ongoing everyday some form of stress that is there. We know life will be stressful. That's like acute stress, like having a flat tire, or you're on a project for 3 months that will end soon. That's like acute stress, everyday stress. But chronic stress is like when there's like no ending point. And that's what this role has turned into. And again, this is this messy middle part because again, the role did not turn out that way. I mean, it didn't begin that way, but things change, uh, leadership changes, expectations changes, maybe the needs of the department may change, the business may shift focus on what their priorities are. Things change and it challenges the needs you may have and the reasons that you went into that specific job. And again, this is the messy middle because, like I said in a previous video, when you come off of um, burnout, exhaustion, whatever your reason was for leaving a previous role, you just don't automatically, or I would just say it's very rare that you immediately jump into your dream job. So you're probably going to this bridge job or this middle job that does meet your needs, to a certain degree, but it's not ultimately the place that you want to go. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. What I have learned and what I would advise or recommend is for you to have continue to keep a level of clarity on what your desires are and continue to move in that direction, because I can say for myself, and if I can speak honestly, is that I got comfortable. I got comfortable. I got comfortable for a lot of reasons, the economic state that the world is in and all the things that you hear on the news about the job market, about nearly 600,000 Black women losing their jobs. And you feel guilty, like I felt guilty, like why would I think about leaving this job when there's women out there that don't have a job? And then you start to think, oh, it's not that bad, or it won't last forever, but you feel the misalignment in your body because you're clear on what your desires are and what your needs are in this season, but for all of the reasons that comfort brings us, autonomy. I have a certain level of autonomy in this role. Um, Financial stability. Even though I don't make as much money as I did in my corporate leadership career, I still make a decent salary. Um, and just the things that you feel like you can just bear for a little while longer when you know inside you still should be moving to your desired destination. So that's definitely what has happened to me. Of course, I'm building something on my own. But you still have to be in this middle place because while you're building, you still need to bring in income. But the message that I want to really bring home is like you still have to be focused on whatever that next desire is. If it's finding that dream job and that dream company, still making those aligned connections, polishing up your resume, making sure you're looking at their job board for the jobs that align with you, or if it's building a business, making sure that you're dedicating time to that business, that you're getting around mentors and other possibility models that can help support you. Just continue to keep your focus on what that dream is. And like I said, I definitely have stayed longer than I should have in this particular role because of the comfort, because of the job market, because of the financial stability. But I've also come to a conclusion that God always provides. At least He has for me. When you take the time to just sit and look back over your life of difficult times that you may have had, struggles you may have had, and how God, you're still here, you're still living. No, things might not be perfect, but you made it through it. So I have, you know, made a realization for myself to just put my foot on the gas even more and like set a date for myself because the exit strategy is already in place. It's been in place. But again, that comfort just made me extend it a little bit longer. So it's like I've made a firm deadline on, okay, when am I going to step away from this bridge job and really commit for myself to my business? For you, it can be, okay, when am I going to step out of this bridge job and step another step closer to my dream job? Because you feel the misalignment in your body. I feel the misalignment in my body because how do I want to say this? What I have learned is the stress comes from the misalignment, not the responsibility of the job. The stress comes from the misalignment, not the responsibility of the job. Because again, we're ambitious women. We're not afraid of work. There's not a lazy bone in our body. We're good at what we do. I've exceeded expectations in this role. I'm sure if you're in your bridge job, you've exceeded expectations or at the bare minimum are meeting expectations. So that's not the thing. The way you're feeling maybe about this is, I'm gonna speak for myself, the stress that I'm feeling is the misalignment because for me, what this role started off as is not what it is now. And again, I get it. Things change, needs change in corporations, but that doesn't automatically mean you have to move along with that if it's not what you desire for yourself. I know I've talked about kind of like the poor the poor experience of it, but there has been good things that has come from being in this bridge job, because again it still is supporting me. I'm paying my bills, of course, no problem paying the mortgage, the bills and all of those things. Now, again, I don't really make as much money as I did before, so I'm not taking really any vacations. I'm not like saving a whole lot. But what I have been able to do with this bridge job is I funded my entire book project. I wrote a book last year about my burnout journey. It's part memoir, part guide. It's called Release and Renew, Transform Burnout into Purpose and Unlock Joy and Ease. And it takes the reader through my burnout journey and in the beginning, how I got what it goes from like my upbringing to the burnout part, the career, how I navigated that, the sabbatical part, which is, ooh, my sabbatical was so good, the sabbatical part, and then the beginnings of the life that I kind of live today. So it's part memoir, part guide that guides the reader through that. And after each chapter, it gives journal prompts to give you, the reader, an opportunity to think for yourself how you could move through these particular seasons in life. So, being in this bridge job funded my entire book project, and I self published. And if you want to, clearly, I'm a creative and an artist to some degree. So, how things are presented really matters to me, and I'm a recovering perfectionist. So, being a self published author, it can be expensive depending on how you want things to turn out. So, it allowed me to fund that project, it allowed me to build a business, start building a business. There's things you have to pay for when you're building a business, and this bridge job has helped me do that. In addition to the monetary part of it, the bridge business, I'm at the bridge job. I have benefits. I have the PTO, health insurance, and all that. So when I take PTO in this season, since I'm not financially in a place that I can travel the way that I like to travel, I use my PTO time to work on my business. So that's also a benefit of this bridge business. When I take PTO days, I'm working on my business. Of course, I work on my business before work and after work and on the weekends as well. But that has been a benefit of this bridge business. Those are two of the main purposes that I have found in the bridge business. So that's it. Why do I keep saying bridge business? In the bridge job. So I encourage you to kind of look at the things that this in between space can help you with, especially, of course, financially, of course, in everyday life, but in the self development that is happening for yourself, and just continuing to stay focused, even though comfort does creep in, it will creep in, but just staying focused on what this middle part is intended to do for you while you are continuing to move forward to what you desire. So, the two lessons that I kind of learned here are: number one, a lower, like taking a step back, so like a lower level job or a less paying job does not automatically equal less stress, and that the stress is coming from the misalignment, not really in the responsibility or the task or the duties or the work of the job. Those are the two lessons that I want to share. So today I wrote down some questions that I think would be helpful for you if you find yourself in a season like this. First, you want to ask yourself, and I asked myself these questions too. Of course, I was like, when I do today's video, I'm going to really sit down and think about some questions to give to you. And of course, when you're going through this, it's not this like perfectly laid out like this. So I had to sit down before I recorded the video and was like, okay, what kind of questions should she be asking herself? So you should be asking, what did I actually want when I took this role? So you've been in the role for a year, maybe 2 years, and things are changing. You're starting to feel stressed. Ask yourself, what did I actually want when I took this role? Number two, is this job still serving the season that I am in now? So again, you want to ask yourself this because you've been in a job a year and a half, maybe even 2 years, this bridge job, because you know it's not the dream job. Is it still serving this season that you're in? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but that's something that you want to ask yourself. You want to also ask yourself, again, am I staying because it is aligned or that it feels comfortable or familiar? No, I might be shaking the table a little bit with that one, but that's a hard question that you have to ask yourself. Like, is this still aligned? Is this still the reason I took this job, or am I staying because it feels familiar? And then when you answer that question for yourself, you might want to do what you need to do to move forward. You can ask yourself, how is this role funding or supporting me right now? Again, how I listed off how it was supporting my book project, it was funding other things, or how it's supporting you. It might be for you, it's a remote role and you really need that for the season that you're in, or it might be a role where you're working with a specific demographic and that working with those people brings you a certain level of joy, or things have changed. We're allowed to grow and evolve and change our minds. Maybe what you need now, this bridge job no longer fits that. And then the last question you should ask yourself is, excuse me, what would honesty require of me next? So again, that's asking yourself a hard question. Like, if you're honest with yourself, what do you need to do next? And I'm sure you know what that is. I know what that is for myself, but we all have to get honest with ourselves. And again, this goes back into what I'm doing these videos about as well, is that rebuilding your relationship with ambition. What led you to the chronic exhaustion, or what led you to the misalignment, or what led you to the burnout? You don't have to stay there. Yes, you're ambitious, but you don't have to run yourself in the ground. You don't have to abandon yourself. You don't have to do things that are no longer aligned with you. Your ambition is allowed to look different. And choosing that alignment and not judging yourself for it, choosing for your ambition to look different and not judging yourself or feeling guilty about it, choosing rest and not feeling guilty about it, choosing to honor your capacity. And remember, I said capacity isn't just about how much I can take on, how much work I can do, how many more team members can I lead. It's about asking yourself, what does this thing, does this thing deserve the level of energy, time, or whatever it is, that level of access to me in this season? That's also a part of capacity. And answering that answering that question honestly is okay, and you're allowed to have that. And I know when you're an overworker, over functioning, uh, ambitious, overachiever, recovering perfectionist, those things can be hard, but you know that's what you desire because you feel the misalignment. And unfortunately, so many of us have just been ingrained to feel like overextending ourselves is the only way to identify as being ambitious. So that's where I'll stop the video today. If you're still here, let me know if any of this resonates with you down in the comments. Let me know which one of those questions that I dropped you need to ask yourself first, or which one is the hardest to ask yourself. And I'm Erica Prevail. Excuse me. I share daily conversations for ambitious women, supporting them in rebuilding their relationship with ambition, capacity, rest, and creativity. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.